We're live. Thanks for coming on the show, Gary.
Thanks for inviting me. It's hard to believe it's such a small world.
I
But yeah,
know. I know for the folks out there, we were just talking about, I don't know if Dave's with us yet. I can't see who's with us, but um,
so far we only got two waiting. We haven't actually went live on YouTube yet.
oh, we haven't.
No, it usually takes about 30, 45 seconds for it to loop in. Uh,
Oh, okay.
John Peel and Sasquatch.
Yeah, Zach Squatch is a common feature on my channel. He's been there though since day one. He's got great faith in me.
You know what? I've been watching a lot of your stuff since we was introduced, and I'm impressed, man. I mean, of course you come from you can't come from anybody better, knowing that you know Dave.
Mm.
Like I said, we're neighbors, pretty much neighbors. But I've been kind of power watching your show for the last 2 or 3 days, and you've got a lot of even your stuff outside of the cryptid community, into the kind of paranormal stuff has been awesome. It's refreshing.
Well, what I try to do is I really try to mix it up because, well, that's what I'm interested in, And Dave and I, God, we've had some laughs in the woods, It's the best fun I've had since I was drinking when I was like a teenager.
Oh, wow.
Going into the woods and in the dark, and you're walking around with like a what do you call it? The microphone thing.
The parabolic mic.
Yeah, and you're listening, and you've got the flash, and you're stopping, and you're listening. It's so damn exciting.
It is. And it's so funny how you have to be very careful with the parabolic mic because it intensifies sound so much. It'll make a mouse sound like a Sasquatch at 20 yards.
Yeah. I know. That's what Hiker Dave said. He had to stop listening to it after a while because it was freaking him out.
Yeah. I would believe you want to hear a funny story. You'll find out with me. I'm very open and very honest. I was down by Hanobia with a couple of guys, and I probably won't say their name. I know one of them's gonna come on if he'll know the story, and he'll give me permission to say his name here in a little bit. But they had a parabolic mic, and they was laying in the tent monitoring it, and I didn't know where they put the parabolic mic. It was them two, me, my dad, and my wife. I had my dog with me because we was doing some tracking, and I had stepped out about 20 yards to relieve myself. And I was relieving myself, and I cut a passed gas real loud, and I didn't know it that I was literally 5 foot in front of that parabolic mic. And one of the guys, I've actually got that on audio. He clipped that thing out and sent it to me. But he goes, "Good night. What was that?" and when you hear it, man, you would not believe what a parabolic will do to the audio.
Yeah, we could hear stuff up on the ridge like. I'm sure it was 100 yards away. And we could hear it. We could hear it walking, like footsteps.
Did Dave take you down to the infamous Siege of Anobia area?
No, we've just been to his area. We haven't went down there yet. At some point, we will.
His area is pretty active. It's Well, where I had my Class A sighting in 2016 was maybe a mile and a half. As a crow flies from where the Siege of Anobia happened.
That whole area, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah, that whole, I mean, you get from there all the way east to the Arkansas line, and then, my personal area that I go to now is over in the Kiamichi National Game Preserve east of Broken Bow Lake, in between Broken Bow Lake and the Fork River and the Arkansas line, and over into Arkansas, and it's active over there too. We've had a lot of activity there, but now we've been concentrating down on the Red River in south central Oklahoma.
Oh, I think Dave was just there, wasn't he? With John Hodges, Anything Outdoors channel. Was that the Red River? I've heard him mention it. Or no, he was in Little River, maybe.
Little River? Yeah, there is a Little River area.
Maybe that's where it was.
Yeah, he's been all over. I mean, I call him one of the OGs. I mean, he's been doing this. Lord, I've been doing this 24 years, and he's been doing it probably 10 or 15 to 20 longer than I have.
Yeah, well, he was on a documentary in the 90s.
Yeah. Him and Kanjat and Tim Harjo was on oh, can't even think. Bigfootsville back in the late 90s. I was in the military when they brought that out because Kanjat had just come out of high school.
Right. Yeah, because I was actually talking about you in the last broadcast to Dave, and I'm trying to tell him who's coming on, and I'm like, yeah, he's from, I couldn't remember, Hugo. You said something about Hugo.
I was born in Hugo, but I was raised in a little town just outside of Ada called Stratford, Oklahoma.
Right. Yeah, I got lost around there. I was coming from Dallas, Texas, and I came through, I don't even know where it was, but, and I took a right because I missed my turn, and I just ended up on this gravel road for like 10 miles. And I was live streaming it to Facebook, and everybody's like, oh my God, you're going to get killed by like a Texas Chainsaw Massacre type thing. I'm like, it's not that bad, guys. It's not that in the middle of nowhere, you know? But the people in Ireland aren't used to that kind of scenery and stuff, you know? So, are we live on YouTube yet? Can you tell?
Yeah, we're live. I had to refresh the link, but yeah, we're live.
That's strange. I didn't know that.
Yeah, there's usually like a 30-second, like we'll be talking here, and just a second. Just now started doing this, so about a 10 to 15 second. So
do you want to tell the folks about who doesn't know you? Do you want to tell them about your channel?
Sure. I mean, I've been doing the outdoor stuff for years, but I've got a channel called P3 Productions. It started out years and years ago as Two Bears Outdoors, and we was doing survival videos and just bushcrafting videos and anything with the outdoors, even campfire cooking and home cooking and canning and all kinds of stuff. And then we kind of pushed it on over into somebody asked me about if I'd ever heard about Bigfoot, and lo and behold, you get me started on something. I'm hello, Papa Craig C. I started talking about Bigfoot. Well, they was interested in me putting it on the channel, so I started putting it on the channel, and it blew out of proportion. I was having a hard time keeping up with the outdoor stuff and the Bigfoot stuff because people found out that I specialized in, and I've done the Bigfoot stuff personally, you know, for myself for 20 years, but I never put it on YouTube. But people found out about my tracking skills and stuff and started calling me out to go to Bigfoot investigations and research areas and to do some tracking. And so we started putting it on. We started doing the Bigfoot stuff about 3-4 years ago. And with that, now that is our kind of Poor Boys Paranormal and is our mainstay. And I actually produce 9 shows. I do the background stuff, like help them with their logos and, the production side of it, and do a lot of editing for them. And we've got a network of great enthusiasts and great YouTubers and researchers. And there's probably about 100 of us now in this network. And
really,
and of course, Miss Daniela, introduced me and you. And she's one of them. I mean, she's my sweetheart. I love her to death. She's such a sweet lady.
Yeah, she's a good interviewer.
Yes, she is. Very good.
Doesn't take any crap either.
No, she don't. That daggone girl. I tell you, we've been trying to get her across the big pond for a long time. I was telling her, my wife tells her all the time, just bring your hind end to Oklahoma and we'll put you in the Bigfoot woods.
Yeah.
But no, we started doing the Bigfoot stuff, and we've been doing it ever since. And we've been just growing, kind of like you, just a small channel that's been growing. But we're kind of like you too. We're kind of a no nonsense. I don't bash anybody. I uplift everybody. Anybody's welcome to, to tell their experiences, no matter how mundane it is or how extreme it is. Yeah. When I first started doing this, I wasn't real big into I don't like using the word, the so-called woo side of things, because what I seen was physical. I was able to track it. I'm still able to track these things. But there's just a lot of stuff you can't explain, and after 2 weekends ago, I went down to the Red River with 3 groups. There's 3 groups of us all together. Now, my group is me, my wife, and my father. My father's a part of it. But we went down there and we had more paranormal stuff happening than we did Sasquatch. And we had a mixture of both. And I was able to find Sasquatch tracks. I was able to find cat tracks. We seen cats. We actually had a big cat stalk us. That was weird. I mean, we was carrying rifles and everything else. But No, just been doing it and love it. You know, it, like I was telling you before we started, it has become a mainstay in our household, and we're not out here to make money. We're not out here to make fame or fortune. I'm out here for the preservation of this species, and to get the information out there. You know, I hear a lot of folks say that they don't need to be protected. Well, I'll agree to disagree. I think the more people that are acknowledging this species, and just like here in Oklahoma a couple of months ago, they passed a $2 million bounty and wanted to open up a hunting. It just made me sick, sick in my stomach. I understand it just to get tourists, but it literally just makes me sick. I call those hills my hills, them hills down in southeastern Oklahoma. I was born and raised down there, and I still, that's home, and all these people coming in just tearing it up. It's not.
Even still, you must know like local people that you wouldn't want going looking for these things in the middle of the night. You must know some characters that you're like,
oh yeah,
scary characters.
Yeah. I know. I hate to say it, but I know some researchers that I'd prefer not to be out in the woods because of their unsafe practices. One thing that we do that I've been doing for a while now is no alcohol at all, especially with firearms. But I just there's some folks that I would just assume didn't even step in the woods because they're just
they're getting wasted and going in there with guns, and that's
absolutely
bad judgment.
Absolutely, and if you've got other people in there. I've heard stories of people getting shot at and everything else. And that's another thing too. You've been in the Coyomaches with Dave, and there's areas down there that you don't, unless you know somebody in there, you don't go stepping off up in there. I mean, I hate to say that, but it gives the cliche of what was that movie? Where they went down the river in the canoe.
The River Wild or something?
No.
Meryl Streep?
No, it was...
Deliverance?
Deliverance. I mean, I hate to say that, but that cliche metaphor, southeastern Oklahoma and western Arkansas, there's some areas down there, and what's funny is half of them are my family.
That's why when something was walking around my tent at 3:30 in the morning, I knew it wasn't a person.
Absolutely, and that's the key point. Most people carry firearms down there,
right? And
it's just not safe, to be in there tromping around trying to track or something. It's just a respect issue, and I don't know why they did it. I know they're trying to get people to come in there for tourists because of the whole COVID-19 hit everybody. I mean, it even hit us in the Bigfoot community because we haven't had we're just now getting back into the swing of things of having our festivals. Hanobia canceled for last year. I think they might do it this year, but so yeah, we just got a little channel. It's I guess we could plug it in the deals.
How do we do that?
I'd have to share it. You can just look it up on P3 Productions on YouTube, and then look for P3 Productions on Facebook or me, Gary Spikes Jr. The easiest way to remember it for Facebook is just type in Graveyard Cowboy, and it pops up real quick. People's like, Graveyard Cowboy. Long story. But,
that's good for a band.
It was.
So, do you want to how about getting into your encounter then? That's a long story, but I'd like you to go back to the start. For people that haven't heard it, that was what made me text Danielle and say, hey, listen, because you actually went on the Daniela's show, Hidden Existence, and got Gary Batson, is it? Gary, the guy that draws the Bigfoot, Bigfoot.
Yeah, Larry Batson. Larry Batson. Yeah, and he actually, I was his first one to do that series.
That's right.
And real unique. Before we get into the sighting, real unique. I had been working with a digital artist out of England for like 3 weeks to do a rendering of what I seen, and he had it spot on, and it was so awesome, and it was emotional. For Larry, I had been working with this guy for 3 weeks to get it perfect, back and forth, back and forth. And Steve's a great guy. He's a great artist. He does graphic artist he does all my logos and stuff. Great guy. If anybody needs any artwork done, I can get them to him. But Larry, in 45 minutes, just sketched this thing from my description, and it was uncanny. And it was funny because Larry had never seen the first rendering. So when we put them next to each other, even Larry got emotional about it. It shows how accurate the guy is. But I won't tell the full story. I mean, you can catch it on my channel. It's like a 36-minute video of the whole story. But I had got called into southeastern Oklahoma from some guys out of South Texas. They wanted to have some guys from Dallas area go into that area. So they Bigfoot community is kind of weird. Like any of y'all that knows it, we're a small community, but they contacted the guy from South Texas, which was a mutual acquaintance of mine. And he called me and says, "Hey, I've got 2 guys wanting to go into southeastern Oklahoma into your area," which it is not my area. It's all public land. Anybody can go in there. And I encourage people to go in there. But with my skill set, he wanted me to go in with them, and they did too. And their first words was, "How much does it cost you?" And I said, "It don't cost y'all nothing. I don't charge people. I don't believe in that. I don't do that." But I said, "I'll meet y'all down there," when I made the initial contact with them. And we went in, and we didn't get there until it was Thanksgiving Eve. And I wasn't planning on going because I was working, but the oil field had shut down on me for the weekend. So we went down there. And we got there about 5 o'clock in the evening, and they wanted to go ahead and go on up. I was figuring we'd stay at my uncle's campground down at Honobia that night and then go up the next morning. We was going to go up for 2 days, and it was going to work out to be like 3 days and 2 nights altogether. But they was fired up, boy, and it was really it was enthralling for me to see these guys from the city. I mean, it's kind of one of them, be careful what you wish for, because they've never been in the area, and they wanted to go up. I said, "Well, if y'all want to go up, we got about 3 or 4 hours before sunset. We'll make it as far up in there as we can." And so we took off up there, and my partners, I think my partner's going to come in here in a little bit. The one that, yep, he's here. Shane Carpenter from Ozark Mountain Sasquatch is here. One of my great friends, and he was the one that was involved with the parabolic microphone issue.
Why can't I see all those people? Or are you looking at YouTube?
I actually seen that on, if you go to the comments on your StreamYard, you'll see private chat and comments on your left side of the screen.
Right.
And just click on that and you'll see who's coming in.
It's not showing up for me. Do you pay for it?
Yes, I do. I am paid for it.
That might be why.
But I'm also streaming. I've got another machine over here. I'm streaming YouTube and watching the comments over there also.
Okay.
So if you didn't want to look at me, technically, here's where I come in with this whole production thing. If you didn't want to look at me, technically, you could minimize this screen and go straight to the YouTube, but you'll have to mute the YouTube.
Like super chat kind of thing.
Yeah. But anyway, so we started hiking up in there, and we got up in there probably 3/4 of a mile or so, and it was starting to get getting dark on us and getting late, so we decided to camp, and we camped down in this little hollow type deal. And like I said, I'm not going to get into all the details because I'd keep you here all night.
Right.
Pretty much, we set up camp. I threw my I don't sleep in tents very often. It can be 30 degrees outside and I'm sleeping on the ground. I want to be able to see what's coming at me, and just the way I am.
Right.
And so I just threw my sleeping bag out underneath the cedar tree, and they had their tent set up. And I was like, guys, we're going to get a pretty early start in the morning. And I had drove farther than they had. So Max Powers, hey, they're another buddy of mine. I had rolled up, we'd sitting around talking a little bit, and I had, like I said, rolled my sleeping bag out underneath a cedar tree, and we'd been sitting there talking, and as we were sitting there talking, we was hearing little, when you've been out in the woods enough, you start to get in tune with what's going on. You can hear little wood knocks way off in the distance and little twigs snap, and, you're not 100% that it's Sasquatch, but you got a pretty good idea because we knew this was an active area. And so that was getting them kind of high strung and me high strung. So we're starting to get a little bit, our senses heightened But it was time to go to. I decided to go to bed, and I slid into the sleeping bag. And when you're camping, if you're ever camping, you always sleep with your feet downhill if you're on a slope. And I was on the outer slope of this little flat spot on the side of the hill. It was actually a 2-track that runs through there, a logging road. So most of the noises we was hearing was coming from uphill, which that's predominantly Sasquatch. They like the high ground. But I had slid in underneath that cedar tree, and I had my feet kind of bumped up against that cedar tree so I wouldn't slide on down the hill. And I'm laying there, and I'm listening. You can hear the guys talking a little bit, and they're chatting and getting ready to wind down to go to bed. And then you can hear what I thought was stuff up on the hill. And
so you can hear both at the same time.
Oh yeah. When I'm real weird when I get in the woods, and this is part of my background. I detune, and even like now, I live in the city, but I wear earplugs quite a bit. Like this volume level in my ears is maybe at a 2 out of 10, and it's too loud, but I want to be able to hear you. I detune my ears now. Loud noises drive me nuts anymore, and especially when I get out in the woods. That's I've got videos out about it, about how to center yourself and to get your mentality right when you step into the woods and it accents you. Shane, you'd know all about that, wouldn't you, brother? But I got to give him shout outs. I always do. If I tell you what would be a good guest to have on your show, my friend, would be Shane Carpenter. I mean, anything that I can tell you, this guy takes it to a whole nother level. I mean,
you get in touch with me, yeah?
Yeah, Shane, matter of fact, I got to call him after we get off of here. But anyways, I was sleeping I wasn't sleeping. I was laying there fixing to go to sleep with my feet up against that tree. And I literally heard something coming up the hill behind that tree, and it was the biggest cedar tree right there at that camp. I mean, the cedar tree was...
So this was coming up the hill, not from
coming
above.
up. Yeah, you could hear something just, like every once in a while, and this is kind of real slopey. You know what it is like down there in the Kiamichi, is real granite and a lot of shale. And every once in a while, you'd hear something snap, and you'd hear something like dirt sliding. And I got real uncomfortable. I mean, usually... And in doing the research and stuff, we know that it's a common factor for they'll make noise over here and then they'll sneak around you over here. Whenever you hear a noise, I always look the opposite direction because I'm figuring there's one behind me. But this thing coming up that hill like that, it got real uncanny, and it wasn't very far away. It was probably maybe 30, 40 feet down that ridge. So let's just say that big boy slid his butt out from underneath that cedar tree. And I said, fellas, we're heading home. They don't want us here. And they was like, what? And I told them what was happening. And as soon as I told them that the one was coming up, they got real. I mean, you do. I mean, that's uncanny. I mean, it just spooks you. So we packed up and started down the hill, and they literally paralleled us coming down the hill. You could hear like a wood knock on one side, and then you hear like a twig snap on the other. And then way back up the hill, we heard a hoot or two, a hoop sound. And we ended up making it, down to the trucks. And of course, we had our flashlights going and everything. So I knew, pretty much if we had our headlamps and our spotlights going, that they wouldn't be pushing in on us too much. But you could still tell that they were following us down the hill.
Now, how far away were you from the trucks?
Where we stopped and camped, almost 3/4 of a mile. It was close to 3/4 of a mile.
But in that country, it's far enough.
Yeah. Well, I have to get confirmation on this. And now that Shane's here, I want to give him and Randy credit. Well, let's just say I'll get to that part of the story here in a little bit, but I didn't go back to that spot for 4 years. Well, almost 3 years. It happened in 2016. Shane, I'm pretty sure me and you went down there in 2018, so 2 years. It terrified me what happened. But the whole point I was getting at is when we rolled up to that site and I stepped out of the truck, and me and Shane and Randy, they're all part of Ozark Mountain Sasquatch, was standing there, and Randy runs that area real well. That's part of his area. Shane was like, yes. So it was 2018. Randy, it was so funny when I told him where I had my sighting. He goes, that's interesting because I had one of my sightings 200 yards around this ridge. If you go another farther past where he had his sighting is where we was at. So all of this was confirmed without being confirmed if you know what I mean. So he had sightings in the area and I had sightings. But the whole thing, we got back to the trucks, to the cars where we was parked, and they wanted to go back in the morning and see if they could find evidence. And I've got a pretty extensive military background. Most everybody that follows the channel knows that. And I just pretty much wasn't going to, I wanted to go home. And but I wasn't going to leave them out there by themselves. So I said, okay, we'll sleep here and we'll go back up in the daytime. But if I tell you it's time to get out of here, we're going to get out of here. So they set their tents back up. By this time, it's like 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning. And I just slid into my seat of my truck. I had a 88 model Chevy 3/4 ton 4-wheel drive single cab. Key point. 3-inch lift with 33 1250s on it.
You had the middle seat, or you just lying over the
bench seat? Had a bench seat in it.
Yeah.
And I'm only 5'9", 5'10", and I sleep on my side anyway, so I can comfortably sleep in. I've slept in it many a time in the oil field.
Yeah.
But so I just slid in it, threw my sleeping bag over me, and stuffed my pistol down in the had a pocket on the front of the seat cover, and fell asleep with my head up against the driver's side door. And make a long story short, I went to sleep. Something woke me up, whether the truck rocked or a noise was made or something. And anybody that wears glasses like I do, the first thing you do anymore, I sleep with them on half the time. But the first thing you do is grab your glasses. But I'm also, part of my thing is when I first wake up, I don't jerk to movement. I just lay there and kind of look around. But I woke up, something woke me up, and I'm laying there, and I noticed that it's like bright. The moon's shining here in the windshield, but it's like dark over my head. And I'm like, what in the world? So my glasses was literally on the seat right in front of my face. So I reached out.
This is behind your head up here.
Yeah. Would be the driver's side door.
Right.
Yeah, I'm facing the steering wheel. So I'm facing the front. So you got the windshield here, and then the back glasses here, behind the seat. And then you've got the driver's side door here. And so I just reached up and just popped my glasses over and slid it on my face. And I just kind of tilted my head up. And when I did, standing in the driver's side window is just a shadow. Now, when I say this, here's the window frame. Outside I'm laying like it's facing the windshield. So I look up like this and I can see part of a shoulder out the windshield.
Right. So it's like standing past the passenger window.
No. Driver's side.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, the driver's side window.
I turned my head. It's literally standing at the driver's side window like this.
Wow.
But the first thing I see as I roll my head around is I see a dark mass rounded out my windshield. And then I look on over and I see a face in the top of a head looking in like right here in the driver's side window. And I don't know how long I looked at it or how long it looked at me, but I screamed and went to reach for my pistol and kind of shifted and looked more. And you could see the other shoulder out the back glass. So it was big enough that its shoulders was wider than the length of the cab of that truck. And I seen the whole face. I seen all the facial structure. I seen the eyes it was so well defined. When he was breathing, it was kind of fogging up the window. And the biggest thing that got me was the size of the mouth and the shoulders and the mass. When I screamed, and I'll be honest with you, I lost all bodily control. It literally scared the piss out of me.
It was leaning down then. It must have been crouching down.
It was scrunching down, yes.
Right.
When I screamed and reached and grabbed for the pistol, it stood up. When it stood up, the top of the cab, the window, which is right at the top of the cab, hit it right about the xiphoid process. Okay. The reason I know this is, thinking about it and going to my dad's, and we've analyzed this situation so much. I had that truck for a long time after that. We know that the truck was 6 feet tall because I had to put steps on it for my wife to get in it, and we was able to measure it. We know that a 1988 Chevy window from the back side to the front side where it extends past the mirror is 36 inches. So whatever this was 1.5 to 2 to 3 foot taller and 1.5 foot wider. So we're figuring 9 feet tall and the shoulder span 4 to 5 feet. When I screamed, grabbed for my pistol, it literally, it's so weird what it did. It looked at me like this, and I don't know if it blew out to gain energy as it stood up or if it huffed. I don't remember a noise, but the window fogged up. It stood up, took 3 steps, and you could hear it crash through the brush. I slid into the driver's side seat, and I even know about what time it was because I fired up the truck and I spun out, took off. I had that 383 stroker that I'd built in that truck. I'm moving. I didn't stop until I got to Clayton, and we figure the drive from Honobia, there north of Honobia, to Clayton's about 30 minutes. As I pulled into Clayton, I was able to sit there for 15 minutes before the sun was actually coming up over the mountain. Now, that is a little bit elusive because there is mountains there, so, you know, the time period.
Right.
So it was right before daylight when this stuff happened. And so make a long story, I called my dad, and I'm shaking. I mean, I don't care how much you search for these and how much you expect what's going to happen when you actually lay eyes on one. It's totally different. I don't care what anybody says. You know, people react differently. I understand that. You know, me and Shane has had many a long night conversations about that because he was instrumental in helping me get over it. But, and other people too, Daniela for one, Larry Batson, and, you know, I'll give credit where credit's due. A lot of folks has helped me, but he had covered, I called my dad and I told him what happened. He says, come home. Okay. You know where my home area is. It's not very far from there, about an hour and a half drive, and over by where Dave lives. And so I drove home, and my dad looked at me and said, son, you got to go back. And I said, But first thing I did is I called up them guys. They ended up leaving. I got to be blunt with you. I felt real bad about it in the beginning, and then I called them back a couple of days later and talked to them and told them what happened. But I told them I had a family emergency and I had to get out of there. I was afraid to tell them that I got ran off by, steering this thing. But they ended up leaving anyways and asked them if they had any activity. I mean, we've all made amends about it. They're actually wanting to go back in there with men. And
I didn't hear a thing.
They didn't hear a thing, huh?
Wow.
That they know of, but you got to understand, we was all pretty tired by the time. But the only reason I know he took 3 steps is me and Dad went back that first day. And we went back in there. Of course, we had rifles and stuff with us and stuff. And we found it was very easy to find where the truck was because we had the skid marks where I took off. And we was able to back the truck in, measure, and we seen the track impressions. My dad's just as good he's a good tracker. I mean, I don't think I'm as good as Shane, and Shane doesn't think he's as good as me. Dad doesn't, you know how that goes. But we're all pretty good trackers. But Shane wasn't there, but I have to give Shane a credit. We found the impressions. They was 9 feet to 10 feet apart, 3 steps, covered 30, 34, 35 foot. Wow. But if you think about something that's moving and he's already 9 feet tall, how tall are you? You're what, 6 foot?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm 6 foot, yeah.
And you take probably a 30 to 32 inch stride.
I don't know. I've never actually measured it, but I'd imagine something like that.
On average, a 6 foot person takes 30 to 32. I'm 5'10", and I stretch my stride out, and I take about a 36, 37. But so if you figure the math, a bipedal step, a 10 foot stride ain't nothing for these guys if they're moving. I've got video of us finding tracks down on the Red River that are 10 feet apart. 10 feet apart. Thank God. But so that happened, and once we came back home, I hadn't been back. And I had a little bit of PTSD problems from it. I mean, my wife will come in and tell you one night she was snoring, and I literally shoved her completely out of the bed because I thought that, it took a long time to get over it. And it took Shane and Randy talking me into going back up there. And Shane will tell you, when I got there, I was pretty shaken up, years after the fact. But we're getting over it and moving on. But that's my Class A sighting. And, that kind of started a trend of research, of real hardcore research and open-mindedness and searching out folks that I think have had legitimate and I'm not saying that any experience is not legitimate, but when I mean legitimate physical experiences with these beings, because I lean towards the physical side. I'm not knocking the spiritual side aspect of it at all, because I'm learning, every day. I'm really doing it now. But yeah, that was my
I'm surprised they didn't go back and do something with those guys though in the tent, or else they just slept through everything.
They very well could have, and we discussed that. I'll give one guy's first name away. His name's Jeff. We talked about that, about especially during the night, about skill set and level of attentiveness. See, like when I'm in the woods, 90% of the time, me and my wife and my dad take shifts sleeping, but we hunker down and we're very quiet. So whatever is out there thinks that everybody's sleeping, and we monitor the audio equipment and take a logbook and write down times and what's happening, and then also record it.
The reason why I think they came into our camp that night, me and Dave, is Dave was snoring and he never sleeps inside the tent, and I always snore. So that's why I think they came into our camp that night. They heard us snoring, and we felt them all day. They were watching us from the ridge all day. I could feel it. All of us felt it. The woods were just silent.
Oh yeah,
they went dead.
People, it's funny you say that, because I tell that my wife snores and she acknowledges it. And she calls it, she's calling in her Squatch friends. It's funny, as long as she's snoring in our private research area, we'll have activity, and then if she quits snoring, they'll get quiet. It's like that they use that to mask their.
Oh yeah,
and anybody that tells me that these entities or target species or people or primate, whatever you want to call them, are not that smart, I'm going to look you straight in the face and say, you better go back out and learn a little bit, because they'll hide their tracks. They're very intelligent. I believe they have language, maybe a primitive form of language. They have the thing that I looked at, I'll be blunt with you, was comprehending a lot. You could see the intelligence in the face. It's just unbaffling.
Was that one of the scariest parts about it?
Yeah. The biggest thing for me, the scariest, and I've done a lot of self-analyzation, especially in the last year. Max Powers, he had a little bit to help me with that, because he made a statement one night when he was listening to a show I was on, and we was talking. We actually talked a few interactions after that about Max is a very well-educated man. I will give him that. But he said your impression of what happened was that actually what it was doing. But sleeping and knowing that this thing came in on me like that and was that close to me, and I don't know how long he had been there before I woke up. So in saying that, I say this: if he had wanted to hurt me, he could have ripped that door off, folded me up, and shoved me up the tailpipe like a
burrito.
Yeah. But just the acknowledgement that something that big and with that much, folks don't understand. I'm a big guy. This thing, I'm a stout guy. Randy, Shane's partner, Randy, the guy's 50 years old and 400-pound bench press all day long. And this thing would bench press it one-handed for a week. I don't understand. The scariest thing for me is what's their motivation. What was looking at me. Of course, we was in its territory too, but it's unfathomable for me of what was going through that thing's head. If he was looking at me like, oh, look at this, if fool, I just snuck up on him and I'm fixing to slap him on the butt and kiss him on the cheek. Well, that's fine. Or he could have said, I'm going to eat him. And because folks, here's the key point of these things: their mouth. This thing had a very wide mouth, but proportionally to their body, it's not that big. But when you're looking at this thing, that thing could have shoved a full grapefruit in its mouth.
That's what people say. That's what I keep telling Dave. I keep saying, why? And this goes through my head all the time. Why did it want to come into our camp? Why was it there? Why did it didn't touch anything? It just walked around. I'm like, he's like, well, it's curious.
That's what I was just fixing to say. Shane says it all the time as a curiosity.
But still, I still want to. That still doesn't satisfy me. I still think there's something else. Maybe that's the fear part of me speaking. I don't know.
Well, and I'm gonna be blunt with you. I've been out in the woods with a lot of folks. I would rather go out in the woods with somebody with a healthy dose of fear and respect than I would somebody that's just blatantly going to go charge off into the woods after these guys. Because we don't have near the skill set that they have.
No. It scared the shit out of me.
Yeah, that would scare shit out of me.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to be blunt with you. I've fought some of the best soldiers on 2 continents. I'm a decorated veteran.
Really?
I've seen combat. I'm an airborne ranger, ex-airborne ranger.
Oh.
And fought with some of the best, trained from some of the best. And I don't think a team of these guys, fully loaded, would have a hard time taking out 1 or 2 of these things. Knowing the speed, knowing the stealth, knowing the strength. Uncanny how fast they are.
And the stealth is uncanny too.
Oh, God, yeah.
It scares me.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I don't want to get too deep into that because I haven't released that show yet. But just a couple of weekends ago, we literally locked eyes with one that was standing in the dark in between an opening in 2 trees. And we watched it, 3 of us, me, my dad, and Tex from Trinity Paracryptid, for about 5 minutes. And it just stood there, kind of swaying a little bit this way, a little bit this way. And if I hadn't have just noticed the little bit of movement with my training, I'd have thought he was a tree stump. I'd have thought he was a tree. And I called the guys over, just blatant disregard on its part of caution. It literally, I think that it didn't understand that, because we was talking very quietly and stuff, but none of us was pointing. I just said, y'all just stand here and look, straight out through there. And they watched it too. And then it was funny because as I turned my head, my dad was looking straight at it, and it stepped to the north. So it was locked on to me, and I had never moved my head yet. So he was staying still. And as soon as I turned my head this way, he took 2 steps into the tree line and disappeared. That was just 2 weekends ago.
That's in Oklahoma?
Yeah. Down on the Red River.
Man, that place is like Woodstock for like crazy.
I would have never thought, I think the Pacific Northwest and stuff like that, but Oklahoma and Texas, and I think the reason we are is because of our hog population is growing exponentially. Literally, where we had this weekend and this sighting, they had 100-acre hayfields, and of the 100-acre hayfields, they was having I've got pictures of them. 5 to 10 acres of the fields just mutilated by hogs. I'm going back down and doing some hog hunting, and I think a lot of it too is we're a lot tighter packed population wise than they are in the Pacific Northwest. So we're going to have more sightings and stuff.
Where the food is, that's what. Do you ever hear of Chris Noel?
Oh yeah. I've heard of him. I haven't ever met him, but
yeah, he talks a lot about them, and so does Doug Hychak. They told us they come closer to civilization than you would think.
Absolutely,
that's where all the food. And there's a couple of questions that came. Remember what they were? Just put your questions up on the chat if you want, guys, and I'll throw them up on the main page. But you said you're an encounter.
I lost you. You're locking up.
You said your wife had there.
Yes. Yeah. Man, I'm losing you.
What happened? Really? Let me just check my Ethernet cables in.
It might be for some storms.
Yeah, it's fine. I'm fine on my end. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fairly decent now. Yeah, the wife, we have it's our private property. We've had some encounters there over the years, and about the same time every year they come through that area, and it's timed perfectly with when we pull the gardens and get rid of all our scraps from the gardens and stuff like that. Yeah, Nana Anna says you're freezing up.
Really?
But yeah, you're a little better now. But we was camping down there one day and sleeping in the tent, and had my dog with me. And I've trained my dog specifically to be quiet in the woods because I've always been a true believer that these guys don't like dogs. And
they hit them.
Oh yeah.
I think it's because they can detect them before we can.
Absolutely, I believe that too. That's one reason I've trained him the way he is, because he can.
Right.
But I do got to say, there is one thing. Shane says that dog is his dog. If something ever happens to me, that's his tracking partner. Mm-hmm. But I've got a very highly trained dog. But anyways, we was asleep, and I had ended up woken up, and I know that property so well in the area because I was raised up there, and the birds and stuff. And I heard the bionic whippoorwill, we call it, just a crazy tone. And I actually heard 3 of them, and they all had the same distinct tone. And they was triangulating around our camp at a distance of about 50 yards. And then they started moving in on us over a period of like 45 minutes, answering back and forth with each other. So I finally woke my wife up and told her to listen, but she had slid down in her sleeping bag, and I'd slipped into mine, and she was faking snoring, and we was texting back and forth. And she was like, "Did you hear this? Did you hear that?" And after about 3 hours of laying there and acorns hitting our tent in the middle of an open field, the closest acorn trees like 50, 60 yards away, and hearing twigs, grass and stuff shuffling and twigs and stuff, she got a little bit scared. Well, then we, right at the end of the night, about 4 o'clock in the morning, a storm started rolling in, and we just heard about 3 to 4 distinctive footsteps come up to her side of the tent. And something brushed the side of the tent, and she texted me and says, "If you're not up here and ready to leave in 5 minutes, I'm leaving you here." Because she told me later that something had come up and brushed the side of her tent. And that, of course, this is on private property. Everybody knows that we had guns on us, and nobody's allowed on that property anyways. And so that as we was leaving, we was packing everything up, and I had her shining a spotlight into the brush line on the edge of that thicket. Because I'm a true believer that bright lights will kind of push them back. And I told her, I said, "Come." I was hooking up our trailer. We had all our camping gear mounted in the trailer, and right on the front of the trailer. And it's funny because if you came from the brush line, you'd get behind that trailer and then come around it to get to her side of the tent. And I had her bring that light over so I could hook up the lights and stuff on the trailer. And she shined it down, and literally I heard her kind of scream, and I was like, "What?" And I looked down, and in that's real sandy soil. In the sandy soil, I've got pictures of it somewhere. We found it was an 18-inch track, and she was able to take her number 7, number 7 woman's shoe, her foot, and put it sideways like this in the track. So the track's running this way. She's got, and it's as wide as her foot is long. And so she says she's a believer now. After 4 hours of being bugged by him, but she's game. I mean, as long as she's got a pistol on her hip and that dog with her, she goes down to southeastern Oklahoma with us, and she'll get up in the woods and tromp around with us. And just trying to think of any other experiences. She did say that she's seen. Oh, the biggest thing about that night. Now here's the weird one. Now this will kind of get you. About 30 yards from camp. Now, this property is where my father lives. This is our family property. We left out of there at 4 o'clock in the morning flying. My truck's the same truck, that 3/4 ton. My dad texted me as we're coming out, "Why are you leaving?" I said, "The storm's coming in." Well, I told him later that what all was happening. So the next day I went back because I wanted to show him the tracks. It ended up just lightning and not storming. And when I went back, before I went down there, he goes down there and tromping around, and I've got pictures of them. But here's the scary part. The kind of creepy, and I hope this doesn't offend anybody, but I'm just going to put it out there the way it is. My wife had set up a latrine in the corner of 2 brush piles. Brush piles about 8 to 12 feet tall. And literally, and that brush pile was backed up against the back of the property. Open field behind it. You blatantly seen a trail that came up to that brush pile and a big wallered down area, and the tree limbs had been pushed down. And I'll send you the pictures to them. I won't be able to find them now because I got my computers tied up. But you can see where something had pushed down the brush piles and was looking down on her.
Oh my!
While she was using the restroom. or standing there. And that's kind of uncanny. That's the kind of experiences that makes you wonder what's some of these stories we're hearing true, because I'm blatantly see the trackway where it come in and push down the brush to.
That's freaky.
Yeah, that was, and I tell people this all the time, knowing what I know about the target species, and Shane, Max, you'll say it, and some other people in here, I'm sure will say it too. We don't know how many times we've been in the woods and one of these rascals right in the middle of our camp and looking at us through a tent, and you never wake up and never know it.
John Hodges has just joined us. He's from southeastern Oklahoma too. He just went out with Dave from Bigfoot and more a couple of weeks ago. What river was that you guys were on? Was that the Little River, John?
Probably the Little Fork. Little Fork or the Deep Fork. You got the Deep Fork down there. Got the Little River.
Yeah, they did a whole video series on it, both of them. Yeah, that's why Mark moved out of Antlers, because they never shown any aggression, but I mean,
they're just relentless. I mean,
the little kids there. What do you want to do?
Yeah, well, it's the same deal with the Siege of Zenobia. You sit and listen to that story, and there's a lot of. I've actually talked to Tim and Mike and they're smart guys, and they was raised up in the area. They know the area. They was legitimately spooked. Had the legitimate reasons to be.
Yeah,
the Little River. Yeah, I know that area well.
Yeah. It's very beautiful. It looks like a great fishing spot. I was watching the video.
It is. That whole area down there is gorgeous, and that's the whole thing. It's and it's not just there. You get up in the Pacific Northwest. I spent a lot of my time in my adult, in Wyoming, and I came out of the military and I moved north. I went to Wyoming, Montana, Utah, working in the oil field up there as far north, Manitoba, Canada, up into Alaska. And when I injured myself, I came home. But it's gorgeous up there. That part of Oklahoma, to me, is the closest thing. There's still beautiful, clear, crystal clear streams, down in that part of the country of Oklahoma, where over here where I'm at, all the rivers are real muddy, but it don't stop them. They're over here too. You made a good statement a while ago about they're a lot, somebody had said that they're a lot closer in. I don't know who you said that.
It was both Doug Hychak and Christopher Noel.
Well, you look at the survival aspect of it, and I've had this conversation with a lot of people. I teach wilderness survival. So it's all about calorie intake and the amount of energy that you would not excel. I would be awful stupid to go chase down a deer if I had a garden 150, 200 yards up the road and go sneak in there and take some vegetables or a chicken or an egg. We teach in wilderness survival, if use the assets that you have around you. And these guys are a few miles south of Zenobia. So you're just right in there where I had my sighting, John. I mean, I was just a little bit north of Zenobia, but that whole area, but that's the whole thing about these guys are, it's easier for them to survive around ranches and farms as it is out in the middle of the brush. And I tell people all the time, you take somebody with a skill set like I've got, or a lot of folks spend a lot of time in the woods. Like me, I was telling Shane Carpenter one time, you'll hear me talk about him because he's here, and I love the guy.
I've heard his name a lot.
Yeah, he's got a couple of documentaries and stuff out, but I was talking to him, and I tell everybody a lot, you give me a backpack and a knife and a walking stick, and I live in central Oklahoma in one of the biggest cities, and I think it is the biggest city. I live in Oklahoma City because of my wife's career. I could literally leave from right here and you would see nothing but fleeting instances of me all the way to St. Louis, Missouri with the training that I have. And I'd probably not lose. The only reason I'd lose a lot of weight is just from the physical. I would eat well the whole way because of farms and ranches and stuff like that. There's always something to eat, and you take a skill set level of something like me. I'm 43 years old, and we figured it up one time. Even with my military career and all my teaching wilderness skills and hunting, I have probably spent a total of about 3 years in the woods, living in the woods. Now,
wouldn't you get shot though if you tried that out?
Not really,
because of your military training.
No, it's common sense.
Right.
I mean, here's the whole thing. Avoid areas that you know there's going to be. I mean, now here's the kicker though. Game cameras. We can't sense game cameras, so I'd probably get picked up on game cameras a lot.
Right.
But you know what areas? I mean, Lord, anybody that's been in the woods can step into an area and tell that it's heavily hunted. And it just, honestly, you hit a river bottom, you can follow river bottoms all the way. Red River running on the south side. You got the North Canadian on the north side. You got the Arkansas River. You have plenty of food, and it just, and I don't have the skill level that these guys got, and the natural abilities.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. That whole area is fast. I can't wait to go down again. I'm going down as soon as I can.
Next time you come down, let us know, and I wish David jumped on tonight. Cause,
I know, I don't know where he is.
Like I said, Dave is literally probably the first person that's ever told me about Bigfoot. Standing in his guitar shop on Main Street. I probably don't want to say the actual town that he might not want that released.
No, he tells everybody about it. Ada.
Oh, okay. Main Street in Ada, Oklahoma.
Yeah, I've been in there twice. Every time I go down there, that's where I meet him. Then we go get some steaks and head into the woods. It's so much fun. And I have a few favors I can ask my wife every year, because of the kids. I'm like, okay, I'm going camping, or I'm not going to Vegas. I'm not going to New York City. I'm going down to Oklahoma into the middle of the woods. So I save up all my favors, and then I go to Oklahoma.
Do you drive down or fly down?
I fly down to Texas and get a rental car and drive up. I drive up and meet Dave in his guitar shop, and then we head out.
Well, if you step out of that guitar shop and take a right and go as a crow flies 19 miles, literally, you'll be sitting on my favorite fishing pond.
Oh, really?
At our family farm. That's where I spent most of my high school days and everything till I joined the military. Like I said, I've known Dave since I joined high school band. I started playing guitar at 10, 12 years old, and I bought all my guitars. Like I said, it's hanging right here. I don't drag it down, but I bought my first guitar from him at 15 years old. I hauled hay and earned up enough money to buy my guitar from him.
Wow.
That was 93, I think it was. And I don't think he came out with a documentary, I think, until 96 or 97. I was already in the military when he was helping them with that. But he's been in Bigfoot far longer than that. He's had some sightings.
Yeah, he knows a lot. He just saw one summer past. He thought it was a tree stump, and then it was only about 4 feet tall. Then the thing started running.
Oh, that's an eerie feeling when you turn and look at something and you turn back and
it's not there anymore.
Yeah, it's like, oh man. And it's funny, he really doesn't have to go far. I mean, there's pretty well documentable Bigfoot in between my farm and that town he's from.
Yeah, I know.
Yes, I do. Mostly my harmonica. Boots on the Ground was asking if I take my guitar into the woods. Most of the time I take my harmonica with me because it's easier to carry, and I can't whistle, so that harmonica makes a good signal, if I need to get people's attention.
Yeah, I've thought about bringing music into the woods for Bigfoot too, but I think they're pretty smart, and it might bring them closer, but they're not going to come and sit in the rock beside you and start singing.
I don't think they would, but anything to strike their curiosity.
Right. Like a baby crying on a friggin' boombox or something.
I'll tell you the craziest thing I ever did. I was doing a lot of trapping up north and was trapping for bobcats. And I had an old trapper tell me one time that if you'll take a CD and hang it from a tree above the trap, bobcats will come in to try to get the CD flashing and they'll get trapped.
Oh,
and
really?
I got to thinking about, cats are very curious animals. I wonder if that would work with Sasquatch.
Yeah, like with the balls of wool, they'll do the same thing with CDs.
Like you put a trap underneath it, they come up to go after or even feathers or anything, they'll come up and go after it. And when they land right in the trap. So I got to thinking about that with Sasquatch. And so we do all kinds of little things like that. And I take it a step further, even like my audio recorders. I literally don't make a blatant effort to set up audio recorders. I'll go sit on a stump and have the audio recorder in my pocket and or lay on the ground acting like I'm laying down and hide my audio recorders because I think they watch you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure.
I would agree that any outside stimulus, like you hear a lot about them coming into kids' laughter and stuff like that.
Yeah.
She was talking about music lures them in. There's a guy out of South Carolina that had a real aggressive sighting back in the 70s. I can't think of his name. We interviewed him a couple of years ago. He says that the Sasquatch didn't like him playing Led Zeppelin, but that's playing loud music and it come in. And you hear, stories of people running tractors and them not liking the loud noise. But,
wow.
So now I know you cover everything, but you cover everything, paranormal on your show. You being up there in Massachusetts, I have a friend from New Jersey that specializes in the Jersey Devil.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I need to get you in contact with him. His name is Thomas K, and he does Sasquatch too. He's had some sightings in New Jersey.
Thomas K. He wasn't on Finding Bigfoot, was he?
No, I don't think so.
I had a guy from New Jersey from Finding Bigfoot, and he came on my show.
I'm in trouble now. The old man's in the comments.
Oh, that's your father?
Yeah, the old man's here. But that's what I was saying. If you want to do some local research, Massachusetts. How far are you from? You're just. I don't travel up there much. How far are you from like New York, Watertown area? Northern Niagara.
Niagara's north.
Yeah.
Probably 6 hours or something like that.
I've got my best friend and research partner, Jeremiah Fountain. He's got a couple of shows, but one of them's On the Trail. Is from Watertown area in New York, and that is a hotbed.
Really?
Yeah, he's pulling evidence. I tell him half the time he's pulling it out of his hip pocket because they're 3 miles from the Canadian border, but they're hotbed activity up there. His family's got a lot of Weyerhaeuser land, logging property, and having all kinds of activity. We need to get you hooked up with him. That way you can travel up there instead of flying 6 hours to come.
Well, I love going down there too. It's a blast. It's like my Las Vegas. Going down there.
Yeah. Yeah, I love Oklahoma. I'll be honest with you. I ended up coming back here. I probably won't never leave again because finding out, it's so weird here because like everybody was saying, you don't have to go 150 miles off into the bush to have activity. I mean, we have activity on our private research area, and it's literally not very far from anything. But, down there where you're at, it's not, you wouldn't think, it's not very far. I just got a report. I've got to go check out some tree structures and tracks, but the tracks will be washed away because we've got so much rain. But down in Durant area of Oklahoma, I got to go down there in the next week or so, as soon as I get some of these shows out of the way.
Well, I know I have activity around here. Leominster State Forest, there have been sightings there, and if you wanted, you could go from Leominster State Forest right up to Canada.
Oh yeah.
If you knew what you were doing and you could avoid towns, you could go right up to Canada.
Oh yeah, and right into Canada. Yeah,
through Vermont, Maine, New Hampshire.
Here's I'm gonna kind of throw something a little bit different at you. You get into that area and you get into some of the areas that we're getting down here and we're having other kinds of activity, and it makes me wonder about all the reports that we talk to about people with the mind speak and a lot of the more supernatural stuff. And folks, this is just a theory and it's just my personal opinion. So please don't hold it, don't get too offended when I say this. I sometimes wonder if we might be dealing with more than one thing. I sometimes wonder if something is not representing itself as a Sasquatch, and maybe have supernatural abilities per se. The one main case that comes in mind, I don't know if you follow Bigfoot Odyssey, but they interviewed a fella by the name of Mark Barton.
Mark Barton? Oh, yeah.
That whole story, you know, and he admitted it. It turned out to be a demonic presence, but he went he went out there searching for Sasquatch, and it represented itself initially as Sasquatch. You know, Max, I sure will, my friend. I've been real busy, hadn't had a chance to get with you, but I truly believe that, especially. We got a mouthful of it not just a couple of weeks ago when me and Dad went down with them other teams, and a real famous area in Oklahoma that's known for all kinds of activity called Brown Springs, and known for dog men, known for lots of things. And I've physically seen what I seen and physically tracked Sasquatch. We physically seen and physically tracked cats. Here's the kicker. We just found out since then. Everybody watched that series on Netflix called The Tiger King.
Oh, yeah.
His area where his ranch was is about 50 miles from there. But when he got thrown in jail, a guy by the name of Jeff Lowe took over his cats, moved them to Thackerville, Oklahoma, where Brown Springs is. When the FBI raided last week, they finally released the location. Well, they didn't release it, but I was able to find it with my background. It's literally 2.5 miles from where we was at. They confiscated 70 animals, and like 25 of them are unaccounted for, or 25 accounted for. And I literally found, me and my father and Tex from Trinity Paracryptid found a cat track as big as my hand. And I physically seen a black cat dart across. And I'm not talking a little house cat. I'm talking, you know,
panther.
Yeah, come across the road down to that river bottom. So we've got multiple things going there, but we also had a lot of supernatural stuff. So now we know we have an area that we have, for lack of better terms, all three. We have supernatural activity. We've known supernatural activity. We have known Sasquatch activity. We have known other cryptid activity. So now we're trying to, in the best way we can, figure out how to discern one from another. Whether the Sasquatch is part of the supernatural or it's a total separate entity and it's just attracted to the supernatural. We're trying to figure that out at this time.
Yeah, with the orbs and stuff.
Yeah, because we have orb activity down there. I mean, it's a little bit of everything. It's like take you a big old cauldron and throw everything in it, and it's But I honestly, you can take I tell people all the time. I did paranormal research for 20 plus years, and my wife is real big into it, and we gave it up about 5 years ago. I can poke a Bigfoot in the nose. I can't poke a ghost in the nose.
Yeah. Well, you guys are for sure. Oh boy. All right. Well, what are we at? We have 108. So I'm going to wrap it up. And Gary, thank you so much for coming on, and thanks everybody for joining us. That was fun, and I'm planning to go down to Oklahoma probably June or July. I don't know when. Really? Dave's going to give me the heads up. I can't wait to go down again. I'm like counting the days, because the first time I went down there, we didn't really have much, but I was sleeping and snoring, and something came into camp, and Dave heard it whoop. The second time, it came into camp because we were all in their tents. This time, we're going to try something different.
If I could give you a little bit of advice, of course, it really doesn't matter, but just for your personal ease, if you could come down when the leaves are not on, like October, November, and it's a little cooler. Have you been down here in June or July?
No, just fall and spring.
It's brutal, buddy.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, it's hot and muggy, but you'll still have activity, but you just won't be able to see it as well. In June. We have activity down there in southeastern Oklahoma all year round, but it'll be more audible, and they can dang sure. I caught myself. I've been trying not to cuss on other people's shows. My shows, I don't care.
I do sometimes.
they dang sure will come in closer to you in the summertime.
Yeah, I can imagine. All right, guys.
Well, thank you.
Thanks for coming on the show, everybody, and thank you so much, Gary.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, guys. We'll talk to you all later.